Hello everybody, today we're going to be talking about cartooning and all of the various things that go into it. We're going to be talking about how the importance of the line of action, we're going to use that to capture gesture, we're going to talk about how all of this is informed by the character, we're going to talk a little bit about including a hint of the environment of the character, and I'm going to talk you through my process of construction drawing and building up on top of that. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is indicate a line of action. The line of action is a gestural line that starts from the head, which I'm now sketching in, and you can follow it down through the spine and usually into a leg. Okay, so I'm going to use a nice sweeping line for the arm here, and I'm going to add both of the hands, one on top of the other, and at the moment they're just ellipses. Let's bring that torso down. At this stage, keeping it nice and loose, not worrying about detail. So I want to have his jacket sweeping back. Everything should always be moving. Even when the character is standing still, there should be a nice sense of action. They're ready to spring into at any moment. Okay, I'm going to have my character standing on top of an old piece of wreckage. So I'm just getting a cylindrical object down there for him to stand on. And let's start to define those legs, just using really basic rough shapes. I want a nice bend in the knee there. So a nice dynamic pose for our figure to be standing. And I'm just building the feet and the legs up using really basic geometric shapes. I'll pop that center line in through the head there, and I'm just drawing through the hands with a thin cylinder to represent the basic structure of Luke's lightsaber. And at this point we can go back in and give a little bit of definition in places. So where the trousers are tucked into the boot there, I want to build up the basic shape of the blaster that's strapped to Luke's leg. I'm just doing this with a little rectangle, a little cylinder for the handle of the gun, and that strap going through the leg there. A few creases around the back of the knee there where the fabric is folding up, and also in the elbow there as well. Less is more with that. You just want to indicate the material draping from certain points. Some small ellipses for the thumb and fingers, gripping the top of the lightsaber there. Just pop the line in to keep the eyes level. And a little bit of definition for the boot there. Keeping it nice and simple, and just putting in a little bit more definition. Now they've got those basic shapes in there. Let's pop a few lines on the t-shirt to show the tension of those arms pulling it up. And also let's indicate a little bit of that fringe coming down over Luke's face. The key thing at this stage is just to keep the pencil moving in a nice fluid manner. You see I've just got that arm slightly up over the face there. And let's bring the bottom of the arm down as well. Okay. We want those lines to have a nice flow to them. We can always refine them later on and add more detailing and creases in. But generally at this stage you want to keep the pencil moving in a nice gestural way. Okay. So when I'm doing cartoon characters, I try and make the eyes a little bit bigger and the nose a little bit smaller. And I'm going to keep the mouth relatively simple. Okay. Now I'm going to pop a little bit of definition into the hair there. And even the hair is falling back from his face dynamically. Everything has a nice sense of movement to it. This jacket is flaring back behind our hero. The hair is blowing in the wind. I'm going to add a little bit of another construct, another basic geometric shape attached to this cylinder here. I don't want it to be too plain. I want it to look like a constructed mechanical object. So let's get the bottom of that cylinder in here. Let's bring it back a little bit further. And so I'm trying to indicate a little bit of Luke Skywalker's environment. Star Wars has a very much an old rustic, everything's been used more than once feel to its tech. So just having him standing on, I don't know what this is, some sort of old warp engine or turbine. Okay, so I'm bringing my HB pencil in now, and I'm just going to go in and tighten this basic construction drawing up, starting with the eyes. The eyes are always the most important part on a figure, so I like to make sure I've got those right before I move on to anything else. So I'm making those a little bit bigger, and when I pop the pupils and the iris in here, I'm just making sure that I leave a little highlight on those eyes. That makes all the difference between a flat looking eye and a lively eye. Okay, so let's bring that little button nose in, and that little kind of slight grin. I get the idea that Luke is relishing the idea of battle. You know, he's always eager to prove himself, this character. So everything that I put on this character, whether it's the expression or the pose, comes from the character itself, from thinking it through. A nice round side of the face there. And what I'm doing now is just flicking in a little bit of texture over the fringe and around the face, and a little bit of shadow there for Luke's collar. And you want to keep this pencil line really quick. You want to try and encourage your students not to feather anything in. So fairly nice continuous lines. You don't want that furry line that you sometimes get when you're nervous about laying a line down with confidence. And having this blue line construction drawing to work with helps give us confidence to refine it with nice, flowing, continuous, elegant lines. So see that flow coming up through the jacket and round into the arm. It's really pleasing to the eye. I'm just bringing a little bit of definition to the bottom of the jacket there. A little bit of shadow around the cuff. Let's go in and refine those hands a little bit. Just the indication of some knuckles there makes a huge difference. Let's bring that lapel down, slightly overlapping the t-shirt, and this nice continuous line around the jacket up to the armpit. A little bit of texture at the back there, and another lapel. Okay, so I don't want to go overboard with detailing on a cartoon. You don't want to over render it, but there are some details on that jacket that make it quite iconic. So I'm just getting some of those in there with that ribbed effect on the shoulder, some creases in the material in the elbow there, and a little bit of detailing around the bottom of the lightsaber now. Let's bring that other arm out to meet into the hand and the thumb, and some small ellipses for those fingers clutching the lightsaber. Let's bring the top of the handle of the lightsaber out, and we're going to leave the rest of the lightsaber for later. Okay, so a few creases there, showing that side of the t-shirt is creasing up, and a few additional strokes inside the texture of the t-shirt again, just showing that there's tension pulling on that material from that side. Okay, overlap is important in a character drawing, so I'm just going to show the suggestion of a belt poking out underneath that t-shirt there. The devil is in the details. You don't want everything to be sitting on top of each other. You want that overlap. You don't want things to be flush with each other. And when I come in to do the blaster now, I'm not going to get lost in detail. I'm just going to shade it in and leave a couple of area highlights out just to indicate which part of this form is the holster and which part of it is the gun. Okay, so I'm going to shade in a little bit here and here and leave a little highlight out in the middle, and let's put a line across here to define the edge of the holster and shade that in. And when I come up to shade the barrel of the gun, the handle of the gun, I'm just going to leave a little bit of information out to separate those two parts. It's amazing how much people can make sense of a little bit of visual information. So now I'm just having the material of his trousers tucked into his boots, Again, I'm showing that tension in the trousers there with these lines. Let's go out and put some outlines around these boots. And I'm going to indicate a little highlight. These boots must be slightly reflective. So as I shade these in, much like with the blaster, I'm just going to leave a little bit out for highlights. Okay, so we're going to have some creases in the back of the knee there, where the material is folding up over itself. And that is also going to be tucked into the boot. And a nice, you'll notice that I kind of ghost my pencil over where I want to put a line down a few times. It's just to make sure that I'm making the right rhythm with my arm before I commit to the line. Okay, I don't want to feather it in, so I find that just ghosting over a couple of times, and when that rhythm feels good, your arm remembers. It becomes muscle memory. Okay, so I'm just repeating the process on this boot over here, leaving a highlight in there and shading the rest in. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in and put a little bit more detail on this old turbine. So I'm ghosting over to feel that rhythm. I'm trying not to use rulers with this. I want to work quite quickly. And, cartooning is all about speed. You have to be fairly speedy to be a cartoonist. So I'm trying to keep this as few tools as possible necessary. So a curved line for the bottom of that elliptical shape. And join those all together. And you can put some stray marks and some texture on this if you want to make it look old and worn out. It's important to give an indication of a character's environment, otherwise it's just a character floating on a sheet. So whether you're drawing a Harry Potter at Hogwarts, or Darth Vader on the Death Star, or Spider-Man, swinging through the city, just an indication of a bit of background, even if it's just a bit of wall, or a moon hanging in the sky and a horizon line, just something to give an indication of that environment. Okay, I wanted to get a dynamic pose in there with that in those initial lines of action, so it made sense to have Luke standing on top of something, ready to spring into battle. Okay, so I'm just adding a few extra lines around the hair where it's tucking in behind the head. I've got my 4B pencil now, and I'm just darkening this area around these coils that I've drawn in. So these are basically just 3 cylindrical objects, and I'm detailing on top of them. Always start simple with those basic shapes and build on top of them. And now I'm using my 4B pencil just to go around the outside of the figure to create a nice, thick, chunky contour line. This is a really nice technique that a lot of cartoonists and animators use, and it just helps to make their figures jump off the page or the screen against the background. Okay, so you don't want to cover everything with this thick outline, just the very outer lines of the figure. If you imagine if you filled the confines of this contour in with black, you'd have a really striking silhouette. Okay, so your characters always should be readable just from the silhouette. Okay, so I filled this in, shaded the whole character in, you'd still get a sense of who this character is and how they're posed, and it would read well. And you can use this technique to make a cartoon version of any character, any famous person, anyone you know. It's really fun to do this. Figure out how to pose them in different ways and tell stories with your characters. But you can see, by focusing on the gesture and that line of action and those basic shapes first, I got a really pleasing pose out of that. Okay, so it's worth just doing some rough sketches using some basic shapes just to build a figure up quickly and see how that looks. You'll really quickly get a sense of whether that pose is working or not. You've only spent a couple of seconds drawing. Okay, so right now I'm using a technique we like to call the Kirby crackle, and this is just varying sizes of small round black dots all kind of bubbling off of each other and overlapping and having gaps in between. Jack Kirby used to use this when he was drawing Fantastic Four back in the 60s to show massive amounts of energy crackling off of his figures or weaponry or devices, and it's a really nice way of just showing energy. Okay, so I'm just going around the outside of that cylindrical lightsaber that we sketched in with our construction pencil earlier on, and I'm just building that Kirby crackle up around the lightsaber. You can always feel that energy bleeding off of it. Okay, so now I'm just using a series of hatches, all going in different directions and cutting into each other to build up a little bit of texture around my figure. Okay, I want to create a little bit of contrast so that my figure really pops off the page. You know, it's quite a flat-looking figure. You know, and your students might want to do this by shading the figure in. You know, get some tonal information in there. They may want to put more heavy tonal information behind the figure. You know, me being a cartoonist and a comic book artist, I'm hardwired to see things with thick, chunky outlines and lots of hatching on the page. Okay, so I'm just going to build up this nice hatched pattern work all around Luke there to make his character kind of leap off the page a little bit. And it's really nice contrast of these clean, flat areas separated with contours and surrounded by this really nice textural effect. You could use a larger variation of the Kirby crackle behind the character if you wanted to. You can use hatching, cross hatching, any amount of marks. Okay. Now I don't want this big mass of texture to be sort of floating there, so I'm just going to have little parts of this hatching just kind of flaking away from it like ash. A little goes a long way. You don't have to cover the entire page with this. I just want to make sure that I'm more or less surrounding the figure. Okay. It's important with the actual figure itself and the mechanical object that he's standing on not to include too many stray marks or too much texture or you know, too many lines on it will really kind of rob it of its fluidity. You know, once you bog it down too much with lines that are put down without purpose, it really starts to rob that figure of its vibrancy and its gesture. So with that in mind, I'm getting all of my hatching and cross hatching out of my system by putting it all around my figure. So, things to remember when doing this exercise, no matter what character you're working with or what reference you're drawing from, you want to just try different poses out using that construction drawing technique. And using a coloured pencil, just play around with different poses until you find one that works. Do really rough little 30-second pose studies. Okay? Just build that figure up out of basic geometric shapes. And you don't have to have the same geometric shapes for every character. If you're drawing Shrek, for instance, a whole different set of shapes. Okay, but as long as they're as long as they're built with basic shapes, that's all cartooning is. That's all animation is. That's all character design is. It's just putting a series of shapes together so that you can draw a character over and over and over again. Keep it consistent. Okay, I think that's probably enough hatching. Yeah, it's hard to stop. Okay, so now that we've got that contrast in there, we can see that silhouette jumping out even more clearly. And I just realised I should bring that contour line down around this old turbine that Luke is standing on. So I'm just going in with my 4B pencil, thickening up that outline. I'm going to shade this area in as well while I'm down here. Yeah, shadow falling there. Now at this stage, if your students want to put some tonal information in, that's absolutely fine. If they finish quite early into this exercise, they can always get the fine liners out and go in and refine their sketch using those nice black inks. Okay, so if anyone does finish this quite quickly, there's room to go further with it. Yeah, and that's how I draw my cartoon characters, from basic rough sketches all the way through to refined finished drawings. So you can keep it simple to begin with, and your drawing will look much more complex by the end.